problem was that it was leaking oil excessively. Pretty much had to just fill it up every time and it leaked out, so I was going to see what was going on. I've removed the top cover and the bar and chain and this cover as well. So when I removed that, I flipped it over, take off the other side too, and the clutch assembly pretty much just fell out, except one sort of stayed in place, but these guys just and there is no retainer in place. I did not have to remove that. It was just gone. It was working surprisingly decent considering, but I'm going to go ahead and take the rest of this off and see if we can figure out why it is leaking so much oil. So now to remove this, you need either a 3/4 or 19mm socket and ratchet, and I have removed the spark plug and filled the chamber with some nylon rope so that when I twist this it will ultimately lock into place and allow me to turn it out. And it is very important to note that this is reverse thread, so it is going to be a righty-loosey to twist this off. Roll it loose, thread it off the rest of what was left of the clutch. There's the other pieces, and I got that on. This little ring comes off and exposes everything else inside. Go ahead and pop this cover off. Seems to be a little worn there because of excessive heat, I'm sure. Pop that off. Expose the inner workings of the side. So now I'm back staring at the chainsaw, and looks like what has happened is this ring shouldn't be there. Something has, well, I guess the clutch plate was not getting oiled, overheated probably, and burned a hole in what should be a more solid assembly and went through our oil pump here. Still spins miraculously, but so it's just leaking, pouring out through here. I guess I got to replace this whole thing. Definitely got to replace the oil pump, and I guess we got to start pulling it apart more. So I think we got to remove the handle, and to do that, got to remove this little throttle linkage cable here, and I think we'll start. We got to take off the air cleaner housing, which appears to be held on by a pair of nuts. I think they are 5/16, so I'm going to use a 5/16 nut driver and take those off. These two nuts removed, and now the air cleaner assembly just slides right off. And you can see the dirty carburetor, but we're looking for the throttle linkage here. And we're really gonna just wanna slip that guy off. Okay, you don't need anything, you just push this clip down, which will then allow the hook end to come out. And now it's free. And we just got to wiggle it out of the other side. I think I'm just going to try to leave that on there. Should come off with the rest of the handle. Then I'm going to use a flathead screwdriver or two to remove this cap, and this cap. And then I think we can just wiggle the handle off. I had to work at it with two flathead screwdrivers, but this finally popped out. Do this one. That one. And I just kind of used a flathead screwdriver and awkwardly pried around this thing until it sort of pops out. somewhat. I need both hands. I had to struggle with it for a bit, but finally got the handle separated from the rest of the unit. In general, here is our oil line on the bottom. It goes up here to feed the oil pump. And I'm trying to see what else is holding it on. Looks like underneath there are 4 Torx bolts. Seems that a T25 is fitting in it for me, so I'm going to remove those 4. Okay, I'm back looking at the chainsaw. It's later at night, but basically cut through the frame housing here, and I was going to replace the entire cover assembly, and I'd actually ordered a new one and was going to replace it, but to do so I basically had to dismantle the entire chainsaw. So it's kind of like, Jesus Christ, I don't know if I want to do that right now. I mean, the obvious problem was that along with cutting through the cover, it cut through the oil pump itself. So of course, it was leaking oil all over the place. I got this new oil pump that I could put in, but instead of replacing the entire cover, I took some trusty AB epoxy and just kind of filled up the gap, because I mean, really, it's just a piece of plastic. And the only issue I saw is there is this chamber here that lines up with the hole where the oil pump goes, that I guess is just a hollow tube that runs up here, so I ended up having to patch it about there and fill it when I filled the rest of this up with the epoxy. And so it's not perfect. Maybe I should have went ahead and just bit the bullet and did it. Maybe it'll hold, maybe I'll have to do it again. But for now, here's my oil line. And I am going to put the new oil pump back in this hole. And it's almost impossible to see, but the other end of that tiny hole does come out inside that chamber. So I want to make sure I'm going to line up this hole with that hole when I stick it in. Opposite side has a hole as well, but it has this groove, and if it's not lined up right, it won't work right. Of course, it'll probably better than that. Can't be worse, right? So now I have driven our oil pump into place, and the thing is to be careful not to push too far in. And then you can I got my new worm gear down on there, and it should make contact with the oil pump. So when you spin the worm gear, the oil pump turns with it. Then we are going to go ahead and plug our oil line back in to the bottom. I'm going to take this plate, one side says top, put it down. Now I'm going to take the new clutch, which is one solid piece, instead of a bunch of pieces like the other one, and it is going to thread on, reverse thread back onto the shaft. And I already got my piston held in place with my nylon rope, which I just haven't taken out. since I disassembled. And I'm gonna awkwardly tighten this on. Okay, got it. It's pretty snug. You don't have to over tighten it because it'll kind of tighten as it spins. So then I'm gonna take this new little bearing, slip that on. Mine was disintegrated. And we're gonna slip over the cover sprocket, and it should just kind of slide down over it. And then we're gonna put cover on, which I didn't have, as well as the clip. Got the clip on, and now that part is all put back together. That's back on. I just pulled my nylon rope out. I shouldn't need that in there anymore. And now I'm going to see if I can awkwardly put this handlebar back on now that I've got my oil line hooked back up. So I should be able to put the bar back on. Okay, well, that went on surprisingly much easier than it was to get it off. So we got the handlebar back on. I'm going to put these caps back in. Here, here, and here. Got those in. And now I want to remember to hook up my throttle linkage cable. And it kind of just goes back in here. Get out of the shadow. Pull this back. And it should just slide on. Got it back on. Test it out. Okay, good. Now that that's in place, I will go ahead and slide the air cleaner back on before I lose it. Okay, I went ahead and flipped it over, and now I'm going to go ahead and just put the pulley back on. Didn't really need to remove this piece ultimately in the first place, but I guess I was just curious. Probably should have put it back on before I put the handlebar back on, but oh well. So we got the cover back on here. Gonna put our spark plug back in here, and our new clutch actually came with a new spark plug, so I guess I might as well put that in. Then we connect the connector. Put the cover, top cover plate back on. And now I guess we'll just see if it starts and still actually runs, and also hopefully it doesn't leak oil. Alright, so we got it gassed up, bar oil in there, and I guess this is a moment of truth. See how it starts. Alright, it started right up. No problem. Actually sounds and is running much better than it's run in a long time. Don't see it leaking in the oil yet. Shoot. Should have done this sooner. I guess now I just got to put the bar on and the chain on and go cut something. Alright, we got the bar on. Now we'll grab our chain and we'll go ahead and slip the chain over the sprocket and the end of the bar. Just got him sitting on there. Make sure that your chain obviously is going in the right direction as it spins clockwise. And now that we got the chain on, we will just use our screwdriver to tighten the chain up. So we got that at acceptable torque, I think. We're going to slide our cover back on, put our two bolts back on, and tighten down. It's all put together again. Start it back up. Ready to cut. Alright, here's a little tree that's sprouted up that probably should be chopped down.